Hey everyone, Scott here. Well, I'm back in from the summer and I'm playing games again, so time to get to it. I picked myself up a new simulator called DCS World Online, which stands for Digital Combat Simulator. It's a flight sim, and it's actually pretty well set up. It's done by a company called Eagle Dynamics, and I really like the realism of it. It's a very, very complex flight sim. Probably one of the closest to real life that I've played thus far. Right now I'm flying the A10-A, which was a ground support craft from the US military that they use primarily to take out tanks and heavily armored targets. Now, this game is a true-to-life simulator in a lot of ways. For example, you have to spool up your engines when you take off. Right now I'm taxiing out to the runway. You have to declare your armament, and you take off, and it's a really, really tough flight sim to learn. Basically, I had to spend several hours reading the manual, and even on top of that, pick up a few pointers from some YouTubers that are very much into these flight sims. Now, this game is great in the sense if you really like complex simulations. It's tough, it's challenging, and every detail is there. I really, really enjoy this game. I really love flying in all its aspects. I would have loved to have become a pilot. I still am thinking about becoming a true pilot. And this is kind of a fun way for me to sort of mesh my desire for gaming and sort of pick up a new set of skills, or at very least the theory behind a set of skills. So, getting back to the DCS game itself, you start off with one craft, and you can actually download the world portion of the game, which is one aircraft and, you know, the base game to get started. And that's actually free. They let you take that free of charge. Then you can purchase planes or packages with planes in them as you go, and that's how the company makes revenue off this game. So I purchased what they call the Flaming Cliffs 3 package, which includes a A10-A, the F-18C, McDonnell Douglas Air Superiority Fighter, and a couple of Russian fighters, which I haven't really looked into yet. I tend to focus on the American side of things because their panel and instrumentation's all in English, so I can read it, whereas the Russian planes are in their Russian text, which I am not familiar with because I've never had the opportunity to learn it. So what I'm doing with this mission is I'm just basically doing a simple quick mission to get more comfortable with flying this plane. I've only been really what I would call reasonably comfortable with getting it in the air and landing and hitting ground targets. It's, you know, in the last few days I've actually started to really get comfortable flying and, you know, checking everything without pausing and checking where controls are and reading through the PDF halfway through a mission to actually understand what it is expected of me. Like right now, I'm not sure what kind of interest I will get on this game in terms of YouTube viewers, but I'm interested to throw it out there and see what it is. The game has been around for several years. I'm not sure exactly when it came out, but I know it's been around for a long time, for at least 3 years. And one other aspect of it that I really liked in a flight simulator was that this also has a multiplayer capability to it. So you can actually go in with some friends who've got the same packages you do, and play some multiplayer games, and you can create custom missions and all that kind of stuff. And for the most part, that was probably what, above all else, interested me about this game, because I have a couple of buddies that are also into flights and flying, and I would have loved to get them involved as well. So, still negotiating it. It's not quite as user-friendly as some of the other multiplayer games that are on the internet right now, but it'll be figured out, because it requires a little bit of port forwarding and things like that. But in any case, it shouldn't be a huge problem. So I've just finished my takeoff from the airstrip that I was stationed at. Basically, it was a little bit of warning coming off the end because I actually started to try to climb and gain altitude before I actually gained enough speed. I'm carrying a very heavy load of cluster bombs, Maverick missiles, and conventional bombs on this particular flight, mostly because I'm still getting E-runs, strafing runs, and using guided weapons. And I'll go through a little bit of what I was going through here. I'm going to actually fast forward at this point because from here, I'm just flying out to where there's actually some targets. It takes a little while because, again, you have to deal with the realism. A simple flight for me usually takes about an hour in this game, and that's great. So anyways, what I'm doing here is I've got the CBU-97s, which are a cluster bomb munition. I've got 3 of them under my underbelly, and if you can look in the distance, you can see a little red dot on the ground. That's an enemy target. I'm moving the little pip, which is that dotted circle with a thing in the middle, with my one controller, try to get a lock on it, and that's me locking onto it. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using what's known as CCIP bombing. That stands for Constantly Computed Impact Point Bombing. Basically, I'm using the Warthog's computer to determine my precise point of droppage. Now, if you look again on the cockpit that I'm at right now, you'll see another marker, a square at the top of the screen that's kind of following a line. Basically, that is my indication as to when the bombs will be released. When it reaches the bottom of the line, I'm at my optimal release point. The computer will release the bombs for me automatically. I'm using this because it's one of the tools that the technology that is available to me. It can be quite a daunting challenge to fly an aircraft like this in a real situation. So you use the tools that are given to you. Now, this game also has what's known as the A10-A, which was in the turn of the century, the U.S. Army, excuse me, the U.S. Air Force modernized all their A10s. They basically redid them with new avionics, radar, and guidance systems, and that allowed them to continue service instead of being mothballed. So that's another pack I'm going to get to at some point, I'm sure, because it is kind of an interesting idea for me. But if I learned how to fly the predecessor, flying the new one should be easier, because, I mean, flying avionics is all the same here. Now I'm getting close to my target. I'm going to be doing a high-level bomb. We're sitting at about 5,400 feet. As you can see, the little pip is starting to go down the line, and my job is to keep it as close to the line as possible with my flying. So I don't want to deviate. I don't want to throw any massive G-turns at it at the last second. When it reaches the bottom, it releases. You'll hear a clunk, and then the reticle changes. Now I switched to the bomb camera that I've got, and this is the bomb that I'm dropping. It's a giant cluster munition now. As you can see, I'm coming in close. It looks like I'm going to come in a little off. But, I mean, you're hitting picking out targets at several kilometers away, and it's really tough to see sometimes. Now you can see it disperses the munitions and it goes out, and my camera doesn't follow them, so I go back to making sure I'm flying the plane properly, as you can see. Give it a few seconds here, I actually get a radio call from my ATC telling me that I've made a hit. As you can see, I kind of turn around and take a look at it. Try to watch when the bomb actually hits, because those cluster munitions actually are on parachutes, so they actually slow the way down. My other conventional weapons are actually a little faster at actually hitting the target. And there's the confirmation I got a hit. I didn't outright kill all of them, but you know, it's a start. Now I'm seeing that there's a bit of a target of opportunity. I'm about 4.5 clicks away from another group of targets, so I decided I was going to try to line up quickly and drop another cluster munition on it. Now, again, dealing with the realism of flight, I've just dropped a huge weight off my plane, so now my plane is a little wonky to one side. It's not so bad the first one, because the first one was direct center under my fuselage. The next one's going to actually be either to the right or left, and because these are heavy munitions, I'm going to start to waste. The plane's going to start to heave back and forth a little bit, or it's going to want to pull to one side, and what I have to do is trim the aircraft to fix it. Anyway, I'll talk more about that a little later as we're about to drop the next bomb, and there it goes. And switch to the next camera here shortly. Take a look, there we go. Let's see how close I came with this one. Ooh, this one looks like it's a little closer than the last one. We shall see here shortly. And it drops. So now those are a bunch of military trucks I think I was dropping on in that particular instance, so cluster munitions would actually work better on them because they're not quite as heavily armored as the tanks I was dropping on first. But nevertheless, you know, it's me figuring out how to be a pilot without any real serious instruction besides what I can read for myself from the manuals and, you know, what a few videos and how-tos do. I would never expect to jump into an A10 immediately and know how to fly it in the real world. But this is fun, and I like this. So I'm going to start, see, I made another hit. We got another confirmed hit. Didn't kill everything in the cluster in that group, but it did, you know, it did spread out the damage a fair bit. At this point, I'm going to start skipping ahead a little bit because this game can take a while, as you can see here. Before I do skip ahead, I am starting to list to one side a little bit because my one cluster munition is off, and it's, you know, the weight is unevenly distributed across the frame. So I got to trim that to fix that up a little bit. And all right, so now what I'm doing is I'm going to cut away a little bit of footage, and we're going to go around. As whenever you're acquiring targets, you sometimes spend a lot of time circling around it to acquire it and bring it in. What I'm going to do for this next run is I'm actually going to do a strafe with the Gal-8 Avenger minigun, which is a 30mm armor-piercing cannon that was designed specifically to be carried by this plane, or this plane was designed specifically to carry this weapon. It fires a whopping 4,200 rounds per minute, but the max ammo capacity, at least in the A10-A, is only about 1150. So if you start to do the math, you can only hold down the trigger for 6, 7, 8 seconds max before you completely drain the clip. And not only that, the pushback on that weapon is so forceful that as soon as you pull the trigger, my nose will get pushed up because the force of, you know, the aircraft going down and the weapon pushing it back kind of makes for an interesting setup. Now, it is very accurate over long ranges. However, as you can see here, long ranges are also very small and difficult to hit. So here I am trying to line up with a very difficult strafing run. You try to aim below a little bit, you know, strafe for up to 2 seconds or pull the trigger for up to 2 seconds. You don't want to do much more than that because it'll just, your cannon will go off and you won't have any kind of accuracy. As you can see here, I'm just peppering the trigger as lightly as possible, trying to get it lined up. And as soon as I pull the trigger, you can see my reticle just want to hop and go up. It definitely takes a little bit of practice to correct, and it's quite an experience. I believe I hit him, and I think I take him out here. So I pull up and wait for confirmation that the target's been taken care of. Alright, so now I'm just coming in after my reticle, just waiting to confirm I get a hit. I had a lot of speed coming down, and if some of you caught that, I took a little bit of return fire, so I just got confirmation I hit. But I took a little bit of return fire as I was getting close to the target. You really don't want to do that if you don't have to. I mean, I got awfully close to it. I think I was less than a kilometer away from it. And the A10 is a tough bird, but I mean, you still don't want to get shot. In this situation, you get hit in the wrong spot, you lose an engine, and then all of a sudden it's really difficult to keep the plane under control. So now I'm just lining up some more targets down the road here. I'm going to be using my last cluster munition, which is a CBU-97. As you can see on the bottom left corner of my HUD, it actually identifies the weapon that I currently have queued up. And I'm just trying to get my pip lined up at those targets straight away there, lock a position, and come in. Now, this particular bombing run, I decided to come around for a second pass. Now, the nice thing about the CCIP system in the A10 is that once you designate a position that you want to drop the bomb, you can turn away. You don't have to maintain a line of sight. So you can verify that it is in fact the target you want to hit, or you want to get a better approach angle, because the one you're going at might be a little difficult for you to actually make a good solid hit. You're more than welcome to do that. I mean, there's no issue with that. After I drop this last cluster munition, I'm going to get into the Maverick missiles, which are a type of guided weapon. They you can designate a target with a TV camera, and then once you release the weapon, it should be able to strike the target, providing the conditions are right and you're not too far away. They're very, very effective, but the difference being is the Maverick is a much more expensive munition. So if you're playing a campaign or something like that in this game where you had to worry about what you were using, you know, you had to deal with supply, it could be quite an issue. You couldn't just rely specifically on Maverick missiles to hit targets, and there's a lot of that coming around here. So, well, I'm waiting to come around on another bombing run with that last group of targets that I picked out. I'm just doing a quick sweep back to see approximately where they're at. Don't know, I'm kind of wondering if maybe I should put an open call out in this video for any DCS players or DCS players interested in getting into this, to try to get some multiplayer games going, or if there's any organizations out there that might be willing to take a rookie pilot that's never actually flown one of these. Because, I mean, truth be told, I can jump into this flying sim and, you know, just spend an hour flying without actually, you know, engaging in any sort of combat, and I would enjoy it. But truthfully, I play games, a lot of games. I really do enjoy the multiplayer aspect of it, and I know there's some gamers out there right now that are kind of worried that the whole single player aspect of gaming is disappearing entirely. But regardless, I'm not going to get into that argument, but I do enjoy this stuff with friends, and I really would like to get into some kind of a fighter squadron or some kind of a casual group of players that like to do this kinds of stuff too. Tough games like this tend to weed out immaturity, I hope. That might be more of just a wishful thinking on my part, but that's the one thing about general gaming that I don't like, is the level of immaturity in a lot of players, especially in a lot of very popular shooter games out there, which I just don't play anymore. So anyways, dropped the bomb. I might have overshot the target just a little bit, but nevertheless, just spent my last cluster munitions. So going to pull up, and I think I had a little target of opportunity right here, and I decided, hey, you know what? Just switch to the Gao cannon, and I'm going to do a strafing run on it and hopefully get another kill quickly before I do another loop around to another target. Now, again, I'm trying to deal with my trimming my aircraft, because again I dropped another ordnance and I have to deal with it to get stabilized for an approach and then come in and strafe it. And it is hard to hit. I'm not sure if I nailed this one. I'll have to check the replay here to see if I actually made a hit. I thought I might have, but I could be wrong. Or that could have been my cluster munition hitting. In any case, yeah, I'm learning. Skipping ahead here, now I'm actually going to come in with the Maverick, the AGM-65 Maverick. As you can see in the bottom right corner of that screen that just came on, that's the sighting of the missile. And as you can see, there's a little crosshair reticle on my HUD. When I stop zooming out and zooming in so much, I'll show you a little more about it. Anyway, my first missile's away. Basically, I have to use a computer-controlled guidance system to designate a target on the ground. And then once I'm within range, and I'm able to, you know, get a clean shot, I just let the missile go, and it basically will go unheated. Like, it'll go straight toward the target. As you can see here, these vehicles are even moving, and it was able to calculate the position and compensate. And they're handy little weapons. I'm carrying 6 on this particular run. They're expensive missile. I think I was looking in the wiki here. They cost about 17 grand, depending on what features they come with. That's a lot. I'm just going to discuss some really general overviews with this weapon. As you can see here, I've got the screen up, and I'm scanning the horizon independently of the aircraft to try to pick out a target. As you can see here, I've got it zoomed in. The crosshairs come to a point when I have designated a target. As you can see here, I'm still scanning. You can kind of see them in the bottom corner there. There, picked one. I got a target. This means the Maverick has found something. You can hit it. Now, the guidance systems on these particular missiles work by differentiating the actual target's shape against the background terrain. I've actually fired a couple of these Mavericks when the machine kind of, you know, locks a little bit on its own. I fired Mavericks into buildings on the terrain because the system did trick them, or the system picked them out as targets even though they weren't valid armor on the ground that I was aiming for. So if you're getting into this game, keep in mind, you know, the Maverick's a great tool, but it's only one tool. And it's not perfect. Again, just depends on your playstyle. Like, if you want to hit as many targets as possible, I mean, the Maverick's a good choice. There are other weapons on here that you won't see in this video. Like, you can get munitions. As you can see here, another direct hit. I mean, if you take the time to aim the Maverick properly, it's very unlikely that you'll miss in most cases. Again, lining up my pip and finding a target and releasing. I mean, it's very straightforward. It's very simple. The A10 missile also has the same capability with CCIP bombing in the sense that you don't, once you've picked your target, you don't need to keep a line of sight with them in order to maintain a hit. You can turn away and come back for another run if it's going to be better for you to approach angle. I really do enjoy those Mavericks. I mean, they're easy to use, and in I think it's the A10-C, don't quote me on this though, they're updated, the guidance system is updated, so it's actually easier to pick out your targets. Taking a quick look at the underside, you can see I've spent pretty much everything on my A10 except for 2 clusters of conventional bombs and three per pylon. So I'm going to actually do something a little different with these bombs. You can fire your weapons one at a time like I have been doing, or you can fire them, you know, all at once, or you can set intervals. This is called rippling. I'm still kind of new to this, so if I screw up the terminology to anyone out there, I apologize. But basically what it means in layman's terms is, if you've got a series of bombs that you want to drop them all at once, or you want to drop them, say, at 1 or 2 or 3 second intervals, that's referred to as rippling. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to drop everything in one belt swoop, and I'm going to drop them in pairs, and I'm going to drop them at 0.5 second intervals, which actually is going to basically be a huge cluster of bombs all at once. And I'm going to let the CCIP system determine its best dropping here. If you can see what I was just doing there is I was just playing with the intervals a little bit. If anyone's really interested or is wanting me to do some tutorials on this game, when I get a little more comfortable with it, I'd be more than happy and go into that kind of stuff in greater detail. In any case here, just verifying all my instrumentation is correct, coming up here. I'm going to So I'm going to be dropping some Mark 82 bombs, which are just conventional, general-purpose bombs used by the U.S. military. Low drag, basically cheap, inexpensive ordnance that you can drop a lot of on various targets. Now, I'm going to be lining up my CCIP again to basically designate a target and then go into the drop mode just to drop it. For this particular one, I actually just watched an outside view so you could see what was happening. I'm not gonna lie, I actually undershot the target horribly this time and basically dropped 6 bombs on nothing. But just because, you know, we're still figuring it out, and I kind of figured that my ripple interval of 0.5 seconds would have been a little bit bigger, but it was actually very, very small. I guess I should have known for next time that maybe 1 or 2 or 3 second intervals might be better if I want to do more of a carpet bombing scenario. In any case, coming up here, dropping them all, as you can see, everything was dropped all at once, and then we go to the bombs, and you can see here, it's just basically a giant mess of ordnance all at once. Kind of fun though. They will stagger a little bit when they do hit the ground, because a bit of drag and things like that. So now all my ordnance is spent except for a few shells in the GAU-8, so I decided I'm going to turn around and head her home and go back. So I'm just coming in on my final approach on the airfield. If you can see it just off the coastline there on the left-hand side. I'm going to be just lining up my aircraft to come into it. I want to come in carefully. Landing is probably the trickiest thing of all to do in this particular simulator, and I would assume in real life. I know that pilots do spend a lot of time just focusing on proper landing procedures because, I mean, that's where most aircraft get lost if the pilot can't land them. Now, with modern aircraft, they come with all sorts of things, like you gotta deal with your flaps, which are basically force the airflow down while the wings allow you to come in at a slower rate. You've got air brakes, which are basically flaps that come up, and basically giant surfaces that come up and sort of catch air and trying to slow you down a bit. I'm coming in on a fairly low approach here because this is kind of the way I figured out how to do it. I might not be perfect landing. I'm still getting used to it. I still crash once in a while if I come in too hot or I have to abort the landing and try again. This particular one I came in okay. I did kind of overshoot the runway just a hair, and at the end of it I kind of just about went off the far end, but nevertheless it was a smooth landing, which is good. Coming in, you might hear some warning beeps as we come in because the game is telling me I might have put my landing gear down too early, or I'm coming in too slow, in which case if the aircraft stalls it will just plummet and pilot is dead depending on how bad the impact is. Still trying to come in with the smoother of landings. I have seen some guys on videos and stuff in this game come in and try to land in very creative and interesting ways. However, I'm not going to start doing goofy stuff like that until I get in there. I basically try to approach, come in at about 150 nautical miles, and then approach it under about 1,000 feet, just as I'm coming in there, using the targeting vector on my HUD to come in for a relatively safe and slow landing, pulling up generally at the last few moments of flight just to make sure your rear wheels touch down first. And there's my touchdown, and there's my nose down, and now I'm just making sure my approach is straight. Gonna apply some wheel brakes and slow the aircraft down. Just coming to a stop. A lot of energy in these crafts when you come down. A lot of energy to arrest. There's a parachute, but I didn't use it. And as you can see here, I just about went off the far end of the runway, so I actually turned the aircraft a little bit just to make sure I didn't. Unfortunately, you know, any landing you can walk away from, right? So there's no damage to the aircraft. It looks like it's okay. I didn't rip any gears off or anything like that, which I have done when I was first learning how to land. I spent probably several hours just taking off and then landing at the same runway strip just to practice it. Because I mean, it just takes practice. I mean, that's what I love about these kinds of things. Simulators are tough and they're challenging, and you know, just being able to do it is its own reward. In any case, now I'm just taxiing it back to the parking stall, for lack of a better term, as I come here. If I wanted to continue this mission, I could have pulled the aircraft into the stall, shut down the engines, called the ground crew to come in with new ordnance and reload me up. I was getting kind of low on fuel, I believe, as well in that particular scenario. So I was going to have to park it anyway. So yeah, just taxiing it to the position from which I started at, and I'm going to wrap up this video. There's not too much more I can discuss. In any case, I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this, let me know. If you want to see more of this game, let me know. I might do a few more, you know, tutorials or do some more things. And again, like I mentioned before in the video, if anyone is interested in this game or wants to get a squad going or some kind of multiplayer games going, I'm more than happy to do it. I might do an introduction to the F-18C next, which is the air superiority fighter that comes with the Flaming Fist pack. Now just shutting down the craft and enjoying it, letting the engine spool down, open the canopy, let my pilot get some air. Just closing the air flaps for the air brakes. And just getting one final beauty shot, as I call it, a video. Well, that's all I got for you guys. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, let me know. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the skies. Later.